February 6, 2020. Can I ask, can people in the back hear me? Can I get positive affirmation, please? Thank you. Can I ask, is this meeting being recorded? Let me put the public on notice that the meeting is being recorded. Can I ask everybody please to turn their cell phones to silent or shut them off altogether, including commission and staff? Thank you. Let's get going. We have, as usual, a reasonably packed agenda. I have only one comment before I go into the agenda, and that comment is, we'll miss you, Mookie. We have one set of minutes to approve from our last meeting in January. We'll go through that. We'll have our standard executive director's report, and we have asked the executive director, in addition to his normal materials, to cover two other topics. One is to go over a proposed timeline for our next regulatory round, and then second is to give an update on the social equity program. And I believe Shakia Scott is going to be doing that. Great, Shakia, looking forward to that. We have a fair number of changes of ownership, renewals, final licenses, and provisional licenses. Then there are, I think, three topics that will be either a commission discussion and or a vote. We do have to elect a new secretary and treasurer for the commission. That would be one item. We have Commissioner Title presenting best practices with respect to diversity plans. So I'm looking forward to that. And then finally, our research team has one of their mandated reports on the status and shape of the industry. At the end of those three topics, I am going to ask for a motion to go into executive session. If that motion is approved, we will go into executive session and adjourn from that executive session. We will not come back into the public part of the meeting, but that will be the last agenda item. That being said, let's get started. And as I said, the first order of business is the approval of minutes from our January 16th meeting. Can I ask the commission, have you had a chance to review those minutes, and do you have any questions or comments? Then may I ask please for a motion to approve the minutes from January 16th, 2020? Have a second, please. Let the record show that Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor? Aye. Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the minutes from January 2016. And to our staff that prepares these minutes, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report. And as I mentioned, we'll go through the standard update slides and then two additional topics that we've asked the Executive Director to cover. Mr. Executive Director, are you ready?
I am. Again, these are our normal slides relative to data in the licensing portal. You'll see there's a total of 431 applications that have submitted all four packets and are pending some status or state of review. You'll see the majority, 178, are for a proposed license type of a marijuana retailer. Second most is marijuana cultivation at 125. This is a more global look at the portal itself. Again, the 431 number is pending with all four packets having been submitted. 454 have been withdrawn. 3,839 remain incomplete or have not yet submitted all four packets. 4 have been denied, and 284 have been considered and approved. This next slide, of those 284 that have been approved and therefore been issued a license, the breakdown based on license type. Again, you'll see the majority are 115 of that of a marijuana retailer, 91 for cultivation, and 67 for product manufacturing. Further breakdown of those 284 and where they stand in the process of licensure, you'll see that 38 have been provisionally approved or have not yet paid their license fee, 140 have secured a provisional license, 14 are in the final license phase, and 92 entities have commenced their operations. Further breakdown based on priority or expedited review, you'll see that 233 have submitted applications indicating R&D priority status, 27 for economic empowerment priority status, 66 entities have been granted expedited review, and 393 entities or applications are maintained as general applicants. Further breakdown based on that expedited policy that's been implemented, you'll see that 15 have been expedited just based on their license type alone. 14 entities or applicants have identified as a social equity program participant. 31 entities or applications that have identified as a disadvantaged business enterprise, and 6 entities have qualified based on 2 or more categories.
Let me pause there. Are there any questions for the executive director? Thank you.
This next slide indicates status based on disadvantaged business enterprise statistics. Again, this is a data point that previously was collected as essentially a check the box. Now, based on that expedited process, there's a bit more process to it, which is submitting an affidavit relative to the women-owned, veteran-owned, and minority-owned status, as well as attending a supplier diversity office course. So this number is really going to be fluid for the next couple of months, likely. But again, you'll see that of 719 applications, the majority, or 82%, did not identify as a DBE business.
Commissioner Title.
Thank you for this information. I was wondering if I could request for the next meeting, in addition to the applications, as we watch the expedition process working, if we could also have a count of the number of these types of businesses for whom licenses have been granted.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the executive director?
So this next slide, sorry, as I just take the note. This next slide indicates a bit of the workload or the work that the staff is going through. You'll see that 154 applications are awaiting their initial review. 184 applications have been reopened, or an RFI has been issued requesting additional information. 66 entities are awaiting a third-party response. Again, context there is municipal response or background check. There's 27 before you for consideration today. And again, to date, 288 applications have been considered by the Commission.
Thank you.
These next 2 slides are, again, standard slides relative to where applications are coming from across the Commonwealth based on county. Again, you'll see the majority, or 64 applications, are pending or considered from Worcester counties. And again, that's the majority. This next slide, similar to the last slide, is that just a retail applications, though, and again, with a breakdown based on county. Again, you'll see between the last meeting and this meeting, there were additional 11 applications for retail that were received by the Commission.
Thank you.
This next slide, again, is kind of a global look at, based on license type, where applications or licenses are in the process. Again, so this is the 719 total applications that have been either pending or considered by the Commission to date. Yet again, retail seems to be the most common application at 294, cultivation with 218, and product manufacturing 164. But again, where they stand in the process overall.
Any questions?
Next few slides are relative to agent registrations. You'll see this is again in the portal. You'll see there's 11,561 total agent applications. That said, the staff's workload is really 152 applications that are pending. That's 147 for establishment agents and 5 for laboratory agents. There are currently active 7,679 registrations. It's important to note those are not necessarily unique individuals, but instead registrations based on license type. Again, of that 152 or so, 26 have not yet been reviewed, 124 have been reopened requiring additional information. 2 are awaiting a third-party response for agents, that's laboratory agents and fingerprinting, and because these are considered on a rolling basis, there are 0 pending for approval. Again, with pending or approved agents, you'll see this is a breakdown based on gender. You'll see that 66% identify as male and 33% identify as female. In the last meeting, I did present based on gender as well as race and ethnicity, a breakdown over time. That's something we'll update periodically and come back, but it's on a monthly basis. I don't think we'll see much more.
I agree with that. Thank you.
This next slide, again, is based on agents and race and ethnicity. You'll see that the majority, 74.4%, identify as white. This next slide here might be perhaps a relic of a previous application process, which is the paper-based MTC application. So it's why it's being presented in a different format. You see there's a total of 157 applications. 100 applications have expired. 36 are pending in the application of intent stage, 10 in the management operations profile stage, 8 in the siting profile. As far as licensure, you'll see there's a total of 90 provisional licenses, 8 final, 58 entities have commenced their operations, and 10 have expired. This application is now available in the Mass CIP, which will allow us to pull similar data to that of our existing adult use information.
By the way, my thanks to the executive director and our technology team for making that transition. I hope that is something that is actually appreciated by the industry. Hopefully will make everybody's lives, not just the staff, but applicants' lives a lot easier. So thank you. Yep. Go ahead.
So this next slide here indicates medical use of marijuana program agent and program data. You see that to date there's 5,588 active agent registrations and MTCs. On the right-hand side is information relative to patients, including 67,228 certified patients, as well as 263 certifying physicians and 75 certifying nurse practitioners. This is probably an additional segue relative to the patient portal and the virtual gateway, which has now been successfully relaunched. Some information relative to that I think is really important relative to patient registrations is now they are managed and that registration itself is automated versus a manual staff review. What that allowed us to do is take a look at the entire universe of pending applications. In last week, there were a total of 4,988 pending patient registrations in the system. Based on that transition and technology changeover, we were able to automate 3,146 approvals of registrations, leaving a universe of 1,842. That transition, that script occurred on Wednesday. Those badges were printed and mailed on Thursday.
That's great.
So that backlog was significantly cut down by 63%. Also, additional information as it comes in, as patients register or apply for renewals or new registrations, are also automated. That was turned on or engaged on January 27th. And to date, we've processed, again, the 1,093 are pending. We've processed over 500 initial registrations that were automated.
That's great. Again, my appreciation to the team and the technology team particularly. But thank you.
The next step or next phase of that project is really going to be launching an application for pediatric patients, which currently is a paper-based. The next phase will be to put that in a similar environment. Why the application may need to be considered in a manual format is really based on identification. Technically, what the script is running is we have an API with the RMV. We also check for an active or valid patient certification because the fee was waived by the commission in the last round of regulations. If a patient or a caregiver were to submit, say for instance, a passport photo or something we haven't automated, we would need to manually check that. Because it is an automated system as well, we do have a robust system for auditing that process. So that's something that we'll also be doing on a monthly basis.
Again, my appreciation. I think it's a really important step. Any questions? I think that's your last slide in your standard update. Any questions for the executive director? Then let's move on to the two other items that we've asked you to cover, Mr. Executive Director. First being a timeline for the next round of regulatory development.
Before getting into that, if you wouldn't mind, we do have some new staff I'd like to introduce.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Sorry about that.
We had 5 folks join us over the past few weeks and wanted to take an opportunity to introduce them. Of those 5, 3 of them will serve in the capacity as a licensing specialist. So they should be here somewhere in the room. I'll introduce them.
Can you stand up when Sean mentions your name, please?
It's Tisa Chukwueze in the back there. Tisa comes to us from...
you can stay standing for a few seconds.
Tisa joins the commission having experienced both in education and law. She's a graduate of the University of Missouri School of Law, where she spent time working in the entrepreneurship legal clinic advising clients on intellectual property as well as transactional law matters. Samantha Keenan, she joins us also as a licensing specialist. She served as a surveillance manager at Twin River Casino, where she was responsible for scheduling, reporting, along with training and development of all surveillance personnel. And Angelo Sotaro, who joins us from the Mass Retirement Board within the Treasury. There he was a benefits calculation analyst responsible for reviewing and analyzing records. So all 3 of those folks have joined us as licensing specialists.
Great.
We also have 2 other folks that joined us. Alyssa Flores, who I think is here somewhere. She's in Boston today. She joins a team that I think was in desperate need of support, and specifically Shakia, long overdue. She joins us as a project coordinator. We'll she'll be supporting Shakia in the Commission Social Equity Program. She actually comes to us from NETA, where she was a patient services associate responsible for providing a positive patient experience along with supportive guidance and product education. And lastly, also as a project coordinator, is Rebecca Kwakche. She is a project coordinator, as I indicated. She'll be supporting our investigations and enforcement team and really exploring licensees' compliance, along with assisting with the logistical and administrative functions related to day-to-day operations within that team. She joins us from Foley and Lardner LLP, where she was an administrative assistant responsible for providing administrative support for their day-to-day operations. So all five have joined us in the past few weeks, and we continue to grow.
Welcome on board. We're delighted to have you. I'm sure the audience is applauding, particularly our three new licensing specialists. Can I ask my two standard questions, Mr. Executive Director, in the budget?
Of course.
And how many of the five are attorneys?
I believe there's at least one attorney in the group.
Got a ways to go to get to a more balanced staff, but that's a separate issue.
We're happy to have all of them join us, though.
Thank you. No, we're delighted. It's great. And it's one of the nice things about finally having our own space and having enough space. When we were in Boston up until December, we literally could not hire people because there was no space. And it's great to have everybody, first of all, in one facility, but second of all, having the room to grow as necessary. So, anything else before the regulatory timeline?
Just a plug that we do have a number of positions based on that space availability that are posted currently. We would encourage anyone to look at our website. We will be posting jobs periodically, especially as you indicate, as we continue to grow and as vacancies occur as well. So there are a number of posts available today. We would encourage anyone to take advantage and apply and join our team. So,
thank you. So, there are two topics in addition to the Executive Director's standard update. The first is a regulatory timeline for the next round of regulations. Seems like we just finished one.
Indeed it does. So this was a request, I think, in previous discussions to really map out or scope out what a regulatory process would look like. This is a high-level overview of where I think key milestones may occur. Behind each of these dates, there was a lot of work between really driven by commissioners and then assigned to staff, and as far as research and drafting, et cetera. But I think what this builds in is the appropriate milestones to check in and make sure we're continuing to make progress on research as requested, continuing to make progress on drafting. And I think another factor that we have to consider is we do have three sets of regulations today: medical, co-located, as well as adult use, making sure there's harmony between the three. So that budgeting the time and the space that's necessary to accommodate that. So we're looking to begin and kick it off this month. That kickoff is really an internal discussion amongst commissioners and staff around priorities, really matching or hopefully tracking toward that list of topics that were previously considered by the Commission. There'll also be, I think, an opportunity throughout the month of March where commissioners as well as staff will be soliciting kind of input and comment, but also, important to note, returning to the public comment that was previously received and sought to make sure we're appropriate accommodating that, or at least considering it and ruling it in or out. Really looking at an April timeline to check in again with internal drafts and get drafts in a good enough shape to begin to review and evaluate to ensure consistency with intentions, especially around commissioner priorities. May is also going to be an opportunity for us, based on those drafts, to think about implementation and what the true cost of both time and energy and resources will be for implementation. Therefore, hoping to come back in June for the Commission to consider the vote on those draft regulations, but do so knowingly and with that implementation expectation in mind, as well as the scope, and making sure it's consistent with that previous priority. Once the Commission were to vote on the draft regulations, that would open up the public comment period, thereby allowing for a July timeframe for public hearings, as well as, again, maintaining that public comment period, returning in August to hopefully to vote on final regulations based on that public comment, the initial draft, thereby allowing us to file with the Secretary for September. So a lengthy process, but one that I think has appropriate milestones to check in on progress, also to check in on the potential for any sort of slippage based on this time frame, which will then allow us to accommodate or make decisions, allow the Commission to make decisions based on scope. So,
thank you. I appreciate the time and thoughtfulness that went into this. I do think this reflects all the learnings that we've had from the previous regulatory rounds. I think it is a very thoughtful process, and I appreciate your time and the staff's time in putting this together. I did hear you say public hearings. The slide says public hearing, but the idea would be that we would certainly endeavor to have more than one.
That's up to the commission, but we consistent with the past we have.
Okay, great. Can I ask for comments or questions from any of the commissioners? Okay. Well, thank you. Got some work to do, huh?
Yes, you do.
We all do. The next and last item for the Executive Director's report is an update on the Social Equity Program. Commissioner McBride, I appreciate you asking for this. I think it's absolutely timely. Mr. Executive Director, do you have any opening comments before I ask Shakia to go through this?
Nothing substantive aside to say that I think this is certainly a welcome check-in, and the progress has been, or the program itself has been implemented, and any progress to date is really through the leadership of Shakia Scott. As I indicated, she has just recently been joined by a team member, but to date, this has been largely led by her efforts and her energy. So I will yield the floor to her and her work to date.
Great, thank you. Let me give you the clicker.
Sure. Okay. Perfect. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Executive Director, for that kind introduction. I'm Shakia Scott. I am the Director of Community Outreach, but also the Director of the Social Equity Program. I'm excited to provide you all with an update on the Social Equity Program today, including program demographics overall and by track, plus next steps and exciting program changes that we've made. So we'll begin with an overview by the numbers. This slide provides a high-level overview of where the program stands today, including how many courses, all of them in person and digitally accessible, have been delivered to date. There are 18 remaining courses set to be delivered between now and April, when the final track is set to wrap up. The next 5 slides are a review of the demographic makeup, eligibility status, and track selection data from the first cohort. So first we have gender. It shows that 73% identify as male. And by race and ethnicity, we have about 37% that identify as Black or African American. And then we have these other categories that we track, whether participants identify as a farmer, a veteran, or an economic empowerment applicant. And we see those percentages there. So working to increase those, but you have a quick highlight. We also break down what track the participants chose. As you can see here, 77% of the participants chose the entrepreneur track, and we'll get into what these tracks do and the breakdown of those individually. Here you also have a breakdown of where the participants qualified. As you can see, most of the participants qualified for qualification 2 at 49%. The following slides break down the demographics of each track, starting with the entrepreneur track. This track is designed for participants interested in or seeking licensure of a marijuana establishment. 111 participants selected this track, and programming began in October of 2019 and is set to conclude in April of this year. Not only will participants in this track know how to apply for, license, and own a marijuana establishment, but they will have the education to grow and sustain their own businesses, plus the acuity to teach others. This is the lengthiest track, providing a 14-course curriculum covering all aspects of owning and licensing. So far, 7 courses have been delivered and 7 remain. The table shows you the course name, how many vendors delivered the course, and in how many cities the course was delivered. So for example, ownership regulations was delivered by the CCC in Boston as the first course. But the next course, application and licensing, was delivered by 3 vendors in 4 different cities across the Commonwealth. The next 3 slides take us to the breakdown specifically for the entrepreneur track participants by gender, race and ethnicity, and then there's a breakdown of the license types that they're interested in. Most of the participants are interested in 2 or more license types. And then here's a breakdown of where the participants reside, so that we could also map out the best places to hold each course. The next track is the entry track, and it is designed for participants interested in entry-level positions or careers within marijuana establishments. 12 participants selected this track, and programming began in November of 2019 and will conclude in January, or has concluded in January of this year. This track provided a 7-course curriculum introducing participants to the cannabis plant, the legal industry, and other fields of interest that may provide entry-level employment opportunities. Participants in this track also received hands-on, skills-based training in their choice of one of 4 areas of expertise. Those areas of expertise are cultivation, product manufacturing, retail, and testing, plus this included resume and interview preparation for cannabis careers. All 7 courses of this track have been delivered, and participants are allowed and encouraged to attend other track courses until the program concludes in April. The next slides break down gender, race, and ethnicity, the skills-based training area of focus that the participants were interested in, and then the residential location of the entry track participants. I want to note, when we go back, we see that participants were not interested at this time in testing, so we only provided skills-based training courses based on interest. The next track is the core track, and this is for participants interested in or seeking managerial level careers within marijuana establishments. 7 participants selected this track, and programming began in January of this year and is set to conclude in March. This track provides a 9-course curriculum, providing participants with specific education around management and management employment opportunities for cannabis businesses. This track also provides skills-based training in one of 4 areas of expertise based on participant interest, plus resume and interview preparation for cannabis careers. 2 courses have been delivered and 7 remain. And note here, all participants, and you'll see it coming up, all participants in this track chose skills-based training cultivation. The next breakdown: gender, race and ethnicity, and residential location of the participants in this track. The final track is the ancillary track, and this one is designed for participants who have skill sets or businesses that will support the cannabis industry, but they are not cannabis businesses, and these participants are not seeking licensure of or employment within a marijuana establishment. 14 participants selected this track, and it provides a 7-course curriculum introducing participants to ancillary opportunities in the cannabis industry. It kicked off in January, and this is set to conclude in March of this year. This track also introduces participants to general business development. That's not specific to licensure, just general. 3 courses have been delivered, and 4 remain. The next slides provide a breakdown of gender, race and ethnicity, and residential location of the participants in this track. So that wraps up basically where we are in the program today, how many courses have happened, the participant demographics, but we do have exciting program updates and some changes to the program that I want to make sure to include. I don't know if I should ask, but any questions there? Okay.
Any questions afterwards? Thank you.
Perfect. So here are next steps for us at the Commission in terms of the program, but also resuming application review and getting the next cohort ramped up and started. So this timeline lets you know that between February and March, we will resume application review and approval for all applications that we have received up to date. And beginning this month, we will start that review. We will update and relaunch the application by next month. Our first cohort courses will complete in April, as we discussed, and we will provide certificates of approval as completion. Then we will continue reviewing and accepting applications on a rolling basis until May, which will be the application deadline for the second cohort, May 1st. And then our second cohort orientation seminar is planned for the summer, with courses kicking off thereafter. So those are our updates, and here are our program changes to date to be more inclusive and to just capture a broader range of participants. So the first change comes to the eligibility of the program. One of the eligibility criteria includes an income limit. We increased that income requirement from 400% of the federal poverty line to 400% of the area median income. So it will be based on your city, and an income limit that is increased so that more participants are able to take advantage of the program. We have also updated the language to the application for ease of applying based on feedback we have from applicants and participants in the program, and just to give more information on what the program is and what it actually does. We also added questions for data collection. We have updated the program overall in terms of benefits of the program, and then streamlining the program. So I bunched those together, but up here they're separated. But now, I guess effective today, benefits of the program will accrue immediately. Previously, participants were required to complete all of their training courses before they have access to the benefits. And feedback in our own overall review of the program to date, we've noticed that that could be a hindrance to some participants. And as many of you seen, we saw that it also delayed our review process for the next cohort. So to alleviate that, benefits will become immediately accessible to the current cohort, but also upon acceptance into the social equity program going forward. So you will not have to wait until training or to complete training to have access to those benefits. And then lastly, we streamlined the program courses based on evaluations that we've taken from participants and vendors after each course of the current cohort, and we are exploring learning management systems to accommodate all schedules and locations in addition to our in-person delivered courses.
That was a great presentation, and I'll echo the executive director in terms of expressing my appreciation for your leadership of this. Are there questions for Shakia?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Flanagan?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. In those, in the entrepreneur track, you broke down the license types in slide 29, and my one question is, were any of the applicants asked about delivery? Because delivery is not listed as a license type.
Yes, so because this is based on the original application, delivery wasn't included, but on the updated application, social consumption and delivery will be included.
Okay.
Question, Commissioner McBride?
Thank you, Shakia, for presenting. So I had a question about how we're evaluating, whether we're evaluating, if participants in the program are getting what they need out of the program. What does that process look like, and how are we ensuring that the participants are connecting in the way that they want with the material?
Perfect. I think it's twofold. So one, there is a evaluation. There is an evaluation that we send to the participants after every single course, and it identifies 3 areas where they should give us our feedback on the vendor themselves, on the facility the vendor used, and then on the actual content of the course that they took. And we use that to follow up with each individual participant to say, hey, I saw this, or maybe you can use more resources here. We also get feedback from the vendors themselves through what we call check-ins, because we don't want to test anyone, but we want to make sure that they are accessing and retaining the knowledge. So we use those check-ins as well to follow back up and just offer additional resources or more one-on-one training. Secondly to that, I myself attend all of the courses in person so that I could also get an inside look at what's going on and have my own interpretation of are the participants receiving what they need, but also just to have that input to say, I saw this, and this is how we should change certain things going forward based on my interaction with the participants in person.
Perfect, thank you. So I had one more question. Have we given any consideration to, at the end of the program for each individual cohort, what, if anything, we can do that's in addition to what we're already providing, is a value add that's substantive in nature to connect individuals who might be coming out of this program with resources that they're going to need moving forward. So thinking in particular about capital, right, and ways to develop, actually take the knowledge, right, and then kind of translate that into, now I'm going to go out and sort of make my pitch. What are we thinking about? Have we given thought to, is there a place for us to be doing something like a showcase, like something of that nature that's an actual value add and provides for real opportunities to connect with those additional resources that are going to be needed now that you're going to be moving forward in the application and licensing process, presumably.
Yes, so I think that's a great question. We have considered, different steps of what to do after the participants have ended the program. That will start with kind of a graduation ceremony of sense where we can get a collective feedback of what they want or need at this point. However, through the program, they are being connected through investors or third-party resources that they can have those lasting relationships with through the vendors themselves. So building those connections with the course instructors or vendors themselves, but also to the guest speakers or guest presenters that do come to their courses, like Raising Capital in the Cannabis Industry had a lot of investors at the course so that the participants could connect and then move forward after.
Okay, and how are we, what's our process for figuring out how to make those connections and who they get connected to? Because, as we're operating this program, right, I mean, we have to be in a position of, we can't play favorites. I mean, we can't, we certainly, we have ethical obligations. How are we making sure that we are not walking a line where we're kind of creating, we're going to channel everybody into this investor who we happen to like very much because they have this connection through this vendor. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, how are we sort of, our fidelity to that, and then also ensuring that where there are opportunities for people who maybe aren't tied in to our social equity program, to similarly, if they want to be helpful to somebody who's going to be pursuing a license, that they're able to connect with those individuals in a meaningful way.
Awesome. So I think that's also twofold. Within the program, we know who will be on site. We receive all of the materials from all of the vendors and who will be speaking, who will be there before they go, but to not pigeonhole the participants into that particular person that shows up at their course, and to help those who are outside of the program or waiting to get into the program. I think you started this great idea. We started to collect information from lawyers or all different types of professional backgrounds in terms of equity involvement. It's also live on our equity programs page now. So it's all different types of professionals who will sign up to offer pro bono, discounted services and events, also employment opportunities, where we just compile a list. We haven't gotten around to the vetting part of that, but part of that is making sure that those services are pro bono or discounted, and then distributing that to the social equity participants and the economic empowerment applicants.
So I guess the pitch here that I'm going to make is for folks in the audience or who are listening on live stream or who hear this after the fact. If you provide a professional service, if you are an attorney that is interested in being part of this program, providing pro bono or discounted services, if you are somebody that can help with taxes, et cetera, right?
Yes.
That we want for you to be in touch with us. We want for you to be providing your information because we want to make sure that there is adequate opportunity to individuals to be able to connect with those resources in a way that is going to help them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Flanagan?
Mr. Chairman, just one more question. So we obviously want this program to be successful. We want people to participate in it, but I think more so, we want to know the outcomes of what happens when they're done, after graduation, if you want to call it graduation. How far beyond the conclusion of this program are we going to follow people that have been in this program to see if they have applied for a license, to see if they have gained employment? Because I'm more curious about the outcomes and what people are going to do after than simply taking the courses and finishing the courses.
I agree. So we baked into our RFQ process with the vendors that we selected, that vendors should have the capacity to follow or follow up with the participants in whatever cohort they come in, 3, 6, and 12 months after their completion of the program.
My only question is that for those that are seeking licenses, and obviously it's taken a while for us to do some licensing, given the timelines, are we going to follow them until they get provisional license or through the license process? I guess is my question, because we talk about ownership, and obviously Entrepreneur Track is one of the most popular tracks. We want to make sure they get through the queue. We want to make sure that they are there till the end, and they could get their provisional and final licenses. So is there anything in the works that you're going to follow them until that process ends, if it's beyond 12 months?
We most definitely can. We don't have a exact plan in place, but each social equity program participant has an identifiable number that's associated with their application that we could follow them through the licensing process at any point. So, even if we follow up with them and they say, hey, I didn't apply yet, and we follow back up, we can identify their application in that process.
Mr. Chairman, I'm hoping that going forward, we can work with the staff of the social equity with the outreach team to really follow the longevity also of employment. I think it's great. We're trying to make great strides in the social equity world, but I think that for me, numbers talk. And so I'm not too concerned about them getting the job. I want them to keep the job.
Right.
Or if they choose not to keep that job, why? Maybe this isn't the industry for them. Maybe they find through the process it's not what they wanted. But I'm hoping that we're going to have real-time data, at least for the first class, because I think it's important to find out what we did right and what we did wrong. That we have data a year, 2 years,
I think we need to get the microphone people back.
3 years down the road to see who's still working in the industry, or if they become managers, or if they've gotten promotions. So hopefully we can work with the team to do that
I
going
think,
forward.
unless there's an objection, I would amplify that if I could, Commissioner Flanagan. On the entrepreneur track, you talked about tracking people in terms of through the licensing process and getting licenses. I think one of the great things about the program, the way it's designed, is that we're trying to help people not just get licenses, but have the skills necessary to run a successful, sustaining business. So I would like to actually track that as well as getting them through the licensing process. Is there any concerns that you would have, Mr. Executive Director?
No, just to add to that point is, in addition to asking the vendors to follow up with the folks that are in their cohort or in their track, we've also folded a lot of this into our research agenda that's ongoing as well. And so Dr. Johnson has already been engaged. You'll see from the industry report that is being presented today, as well as future industry participation reports, that this is and so Shakia mentioned as well, in the modified application, there are updates relative to license types that are now available, but also further data collection points. So our intent is really to not so much to track, but follow progress and also take stock of, is there, 6 months from now, a year from now, is there something you wish you had, knowing what you know now, to allow for Shakia and now Alyssa to make those modifications and make it really a living, breathing program that evolves so as to better serve folks that are eligible for it.
Commissioner Flanagan?
I think also, Mr. Chairman, and I have mentioned this to the executive director too, is now that Alyssa is on board, Commissioner Title and I talk about the diversity plans and the positive impact plans, and in every plan, applicants are telling us where they're posting jobs and how they're posting jobs and how they're trying to reach out to people. Maybe there's a way that we can sort of analyze if those areas are working, or if those methods are working, and if not, how can we reach people who might not otherwise be engaged and be able to apply for jobs. So maybe going forward, not only with the social equity applicants, but with people who are just searching for a job and don't want to go through the programming, that we can sort of find a meeting of the minds as to meet people where they're at and try to get them to apply for jobs and be able to maintain employment here.
Thanks.
So, Mr. Chairman, that's a great point. I reflect on the notes I took during Shakia's presentation is looking at those positive impact plans. And a lot of applicants who are now licensees have said that they intend to host job fairs and not only post jobs, but recruit talent, either from the programs that the Commission's sponsoring or from areas that have been disproportionately impacted. One of the things that I think we need to think through logistically is linking those positive impact plans to those applicants or to the program participants. And so Commissioner McBride referenced what happens after folks are completed with the program. That networking and job fair and showcase might be the perfect connection to say, in your positive impact plan you represented to the Commission, you intend to hold 3 or 4 job fairs annually. We'd like to actually sponsor or host one, and now we can connect you, whether it be regionally, et cetera. And so I think trying to match the programs but leverage each other, but also to the applicants or licensee standpoint is it allows them to be compliant with their plans and serving as that resource for licensees as well. So that matchmaking, so to speak, I think is a key role that we can play, and it's a perfectly natural follow-up to this.
And I appreciate that, because I think, I think it was the last meeting, my concern is that we were still 74% white that's in the industry and that's being hired. And as I read the impact plans and it says that they're posting in their local newspaper or they're posting on these job sites, well, we all know that print news is down and people don't necessarily get the newspaper. And my concern is how many people actually have subscriptions to online newspapers. And so are they using the right venues to be able to attract people to apply for their jobs? So it might be something that we can also take a look at when we're trying to, get the biggest bang for our buck and really use the positive impact plans and diversity plans to get people hired across the Commonwealth. So I appreciate those efforts, and hopefully we can expand on that as the classes and the cohorts get bigger.
Other comments or questions? Commissioner Tao.
It's extraordinary that you have done all of this yourself. It's really incredible. And I remember from your first presentation that your long-term vision included data tracking at every step and after at a really detailed level, and you have implemented that. And your long-term vision also included allowing the participants to kind of shape their own program based on what they wanted, and you've held true to that as well. So it's wonderful to see, and I'm so glad that you have support now. So I have a couple of questions. One is, would it be possible, this might be a question for both of you, to have like a 5-question FAQ based on what you presented today, just in terms of timeline and next steps and what people who have applied can expect? Thank you. And my second question is, in terms of the delivery application, do we have a range of time when we can expect that to be available?
I think that's for the executive director.
We do. I think, so I'll answer the question. I want to just give some context to the workload to date. So as I indicated earlier, the medical application has now been successfully launched in the portal. That was kind of first in queue, so to speak. That transition from paper-based to now portal-based facilitates a transition that's occurring today and hopefully is complete by tomorrow, which is migrating existing adult use data into the same environment and structure, which is no longer 4 individual submissions, but 1 submission of 4 packets. As I indicated previously, that will then allow us to begin the queuing process and identify where folks stand in the line, so to speak. The same vendor, JD Software, was also the primary vendor on the virtual gateway relaunch and migration out of the virtual gateway from the Executive Office of Health and Human Services and into really a similar portal environment to Mass CIP. All of those are now either complete or very near completion. The next project that is already in a technical draft environment and really for QA assurance is the delivery application. So we're confident in the technical process of it being launched relatively shortly. What I think we want to spend time on next is successful rollout of that application, which would include, because you'll recall too that does include a pre-certification process. And so that is a new workload or workflow for the commission to consider. We want to be smart and efficient about that, but thoughtful about it as well. And so we want to really consider the rollout of that. So tutorials, FAQs, et cetera. So I'm confident we can pull it off and release it. Our timeline estimate right now is kind of early Q2 of the calendar year, so April, May-ish. But really what the technical aspect will be there. It's a matter of successfully rolling it out with sufficient notice, as well as the sufficient kind of FAQ and question answer, and anticipating what questions may arise, and then really budgeting the time for workflow and making sure we can successfully launch it. So it's a matter of it's not 6 months, it's certainly less than that, but it's, like I said, it's probably early Q2, so April, May.
It's easy to forget that the same team is doing all of those projects, so I appreciate you pointing that out.
Commissioner Jones?
I am very grateful to my colleagues for asking all the questions I would have asked.
Great. Anything else before we? Shakira, thank you so much both for your time today, but more importantly for your time over the last couple of years and starting something up from scratch that's obviously incredibly beneficial. So thank you, and I'm sure you're as delighted as we are that you now have some help.
Yes, thank you guys.
Okay, can I get my clicker back, please? Can I get my clicker back, please?
Oh, yes.
Not that I'm control oriented or anything. Thank you very much, Shakira.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Executive Director, I believe that is the end of your report. Is there anything else that you'd like to raise? Are there any questions for the Executive Director before we move on to the remainder of the agenda? Thank you. So we'll now begin the licensing part of the agenda, and we have renewals, we have, we have changes of control, we have renewals, we have final licenses, and we have provisional licenses. So we'll do them in that sequence. The first change of ownership is Hope Heal Incorporated. Austin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, the licensee here is Hope Heal Health Incorporated. They're seeking a change of ownership and control over 3 adult use licenses and 1 medical use license. There will be an additional 14 individuals and 1 entity that will be gaining ownership and control over those 4 licenses. Background checks were conducted on all of those individuals and entities. No issues were discovered. The individuals and entities that are requesting the ownership and control do not appear to have exceeded any ownership or control limits over any particular license type or cultivation canopy. Therefore, Commission staff recommend review and decision on this request for change of ownership and control, and if approved, request that your approval be subject to the conditions before you.
Thank you, Ms. Potvin. Are there any questions before I ask for a motion? I would like to, before I ask for a motion, just make a public disclosure. I was a previous business partner back in the 90s with the chairman of Cresco, Tom Manning. I have no financial interest or any other interest in Cresco, but I wanted to make that public disclosure. I have been advised by counsel that it does not require me to recuse myself, but I did want to make people aware that I did know the chairman from a previous business. Can I have a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation on change of ownership for Hope Heal Health? Can I have a second? Would you prefer that I'm.
Oh, no, it's not that. I'm not, if I'm being really candid about what's giving me pause here, it's that I'm looking at the list of individuals, and there's not a woman listed on this pretty lengthy list of individuals, and I was just raising an eyebrow about that.
Usually your raised eyebrows refer to things that I've done or said, so that's why I was.
This is not about you.
This is the first time for everything, Mr. Chairman.
So I'll second it. I wish there were more. I wish there were a woman listed on this change in ownership.
Thank you. Then let me let the record show that Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on the change of ownership for Hope Heal Health Incorporated. Thank you. Mass Medicum Corp. Mr. Potvin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The licensee here seeking change of ownership and control is Mass Medicum Corporation. They're seeking ownership and control changes over 2 medical marijuana treatment centers. There's 1 individual and 2 entities that will be gaining ownership and control over these licenses. Again, background checks were conducted on all these, on the individual and the entities, and no suitability issues were discovered. There's also no appearance of any of those entities or that individual exceeding any ownership or control limits over any particular license type or cultivation canopy. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend review and decision on this request of change of ownership and control, and if approved, request that your approval be subject to the conditions before you.
Thank you, Mr. Potvin. Are there any questions or comments before I ask for a motion? Then can I have a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation for the change of ownership for Mass Medicum Corp.?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner McBride made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approve the staff recommendation on change of ownership for Mass Medicum Corp. Thank you. That is it for changes of ownership.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move on then. There are 5 renewals. Typically, we do renewals in a roster. I've had a request from multiple commissioners to pull 1 or more out of the roster, and since there's only 5, I'm going to just suggest we just go through them one by one, if that's okay. And first is Baked Bean LLC, MPR 243509, product manufacturer renewal. Are there any, Mr. Potvin, I'm sorry.
So the licensee here is Baked Bean LLC. It's a product manufacturing license located in Uxbridge. The licensee did submit their renewal application. They did submit documentation of good standing from all the required entities. They did pay their annual license fee, and they have been inspected over the past year and have been found to be in full compliance. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend renewal of that license.
Thank you very much. Before I ask for a motion, are there questions or comments? Commissioner Title?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose a condition to submit progress on the business's positive impact plan.
Same.
Okay, I think I know who's going to make the motion and second the motion. Any other comments or requests for conditions? Great. Can I have a motion then to approve staff recommendation on renewal for Baked Bean LLC, MPR 243509, subject to the condition requested by Commissioner Title?
So moved. Second.
Is that Commissioner Doyle? Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on renewal for Baked Bean LLC, MPR 243509, subject to the condition requested by Commissioner Title. Next is Solar Therapeutics Incorporated, MCR 139862. Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The licensee here is Solar Therapeutics Incorporated. Again, this is a cultivation license located in Somerset, Mass. The licensee did submit a renewal application and did pay their required license fee. They did submit all their certificates of good standing. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend renewal of their license.
Thank you. Before I ask for a motion, are there any comments or questions? Okay. Then can I have a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation for Solar Therapeutics Incorporated, MCR 139862?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on renewal for Solar Therapeutics Incorporated, MCR 139862. Next is Holyoke Gardens Limited LLC, MCR 139861. Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The licensee here is Holyoke Gardens LLC. It's a cultivation license located in Holyoke, Mass. The licensee did submit a renewal application with their required license fee. They did submit their certificates of good standing. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend review and decision on the renewal of their license.
Thank you very much, Mr. Potvin. Are there any questions or comments before I ask for a motion? Commissioner Title?
The progress with the positive impact plan and diversity plan was very concerning to me because they listed that it was delayed based on a change of ownership. And I don't think that is a sufficient reason not to implement your plans. I think if you're going to have a change of ownership, staying compliant with regulations needs to be part of that transaction. And so I'm hesitant to move forward with the renewal.
Are there other comments? Commissioner Flanagan?
I have the same concerns Commissioner Title does. I have the same concerns that Commissioner Title has raised. I think that it was a transfer of ownership, it was the location change, it was someone wasn't providing funds. I think that I would like to have a condition as them giving us an update as to where they are right now.
And Mr. Potvin, just for clarification, could you let me know, let the commission know, when does their current license expire?
The exact date, I don't have the exact date right now, but if I had to take a guess, it would be within the next month.
I think we have two possible motions here. One, Commissioner Flanagan requesting additional conditions. Two, Commissioner Title suggesting that we not proceed on the renewal. Is there a way to get alignment here?
Maybe Commissioner Flanagan and I could talk with the staff. We could move forward with the condition, and then we could talk about making sure that any business that is up for renewal understands that they need to have a progress, and that having a transfer of ownership isn't a sufficient reason not to.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Would you or Commissioner Flanagan like to make the motion then, please?
I'll move that we move forward, but have the condition that we have an updated positive impact plan immediately.
Updated positive impact plan or progress
Status,
report?
progress report.
Friendly amendment, diversity plan as well.
Okay. So we have a motion modified by the friendly amendment. Can I have a second for that motion, please?
Second.
Okay, let the record show that we have a motion by Commissioner Flanagan with the friendly amendment by Commissioner Tuttle, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let the record show that the motion as amended has passed by a unanimous vote of the commission. Thank you. Next up, Rise Holdings Incorporated, MRR 205560. Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The licensee here is Rise Holdings Incorporated. It's a retail license located in Amherst, Mass. Licensee did submit a renewal application with their certificates of good standing and their required annual license fee. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend review and decision on this license for renewal.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Flanagan.
Mr. Chairman, I would like some clarification from this entity with regards to their participation in two events that were held by the Cannabis Reform Coalition, which is a registered student organization at UMass Amherst. They are a adult use entity, and yet there was a medical marijuana fair, and I'm just curious as to what their role was and who was in attendance and the ages of people that were in attendance.
Is there a second request?
No.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns, Commissioner Tuttle?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add a condition with regard to the holistic evaluation of community investment practices discussed as measurement in the positive impact plan, which included an annual report and a community perception survey. Neither of those were submitted with the progress report, so I would like to add a condition to ask for those.
Great, thank you. Anything else? So then, I would like to ask for a motion then to approve staff recommendation on renewal for Rise Holdings Incorporated MRR 205560, subject to the additional conditions requested by Commissioners Flanagan and Title. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on renewal for Rise Holdings Incorporated, MRR 205560, subject to the additional conditions requested by Commissioners Flanagan and Title. Last on renewals is Liberty Compassion Incorporated, a vertically integrated medical marijuana treatment center. Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, the licensee here is Liberty Compassion Incorporated, located in cultivation and processing in Clinton and a dispensing operation in West Springfield. The licensee did submit a renewal application with the required fee. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend review and decision on this renewal.
Thank you. Can I ask, are there any questions for Mr. or comments before I ask for a motion? Okay, great. Then can I ask for a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation on renewal for Liberty Compassion Incorporated?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on renewal for Liberty Compassion Incorporated. Yes, Commissioner
Can I
Tuttle.
ask a question?
Absolutely.
Of the staff, thank you. Just thinking on the change of ownership that we just approved, as well as the renewal, to confirm if there is a change of ownership, the license is still held and in effect and renewed, if they are not in compliance with the regulations, can they be issued a deficiency notice for that reason?
Enforcement would take the necessary actions to first investigate the issue.
Right.
And if necessary, go through, pursuant to the regulations and issue a notice of deficiency and get a plan of correction from the licensee would be the normal cost of that.
Thank you.
Any other comments before we move on to the next category of licenses? Okay, thank you, Mr. Potvin. We have a reasonable number of final licenses. Again, our policy has been to handle final licenses as rosters. I have had a request from several commissioners to pull various of these licenses out of the roster. So I think the most efficient way to go through is that I'm going to create two sub-rosters from this list, and we'll treat them separately. Let me start with a roster that includes B, which is caregiver-patient, C, which is Curaleaf, D, which is Green Biz, G, which is Pioneer Valley Extracts, I, which is Solar Therapeutics, and J, which is Herb. I'd like to consider those for a roster. Mr. Potvin, before I ask for a motion, is there any comments that you have on that roster? That's that roster?
No additional comments.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to ask for a motion then to approve the final licenses for those entities that I just mentioned as part of one roster. Can I have such a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, just one thing before we do
Yeah,
that.
sure, absolutely.
I think we still need to have a conversation eventually about the names of some of these entities. Caregiver-patient connection to me is a little concerning, and I think that given our regulations and given the fact that when we start to hear caregiver and patient, people think it's therapeutic and that it could be healthy for them. So going down the line, I'd like to have that discussion during the regulatory process.
So noted. Yes, Commissioner Tuttle.
I just want to note that I will be abstaining due to concerns about extra payments in the host community agreements.
Thank you. Any other comments before I ask for a motion? Okay. Then can I ask for a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation on final licenses for the entities that I just mentioned for final license? Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Thank you. Let the record show that Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioner Tuttle?
Abstaining.
Then let the record show that the commission approved the final licenses for the following entities: Caregiver Patient, Curaleaf, Green Biz, Pioneer Valley Extracts, Solar Therapeutics, Vervis Herb, by a vote of 4 in favor. Commissioners McBride, Flanagan, Hoffman, and Doyle, with Commissioner Tuttle abstaining. Thank you. The second roster are all the remainder on this list, so just to be explicit, the second roster includes Blackstone Valley, A, E, Ipswich Pharmaceuticals, F, Nova Farms, H, Pure Oasis, K, Bountiful Farms, and L, Resonate Incorporated. Before I ask for a motion, are there any comments or questions on that roster? Thank you. Then can I ask please for a motion to approve the staff recommendation on final licenses for that roster?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Tidal. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on final licenses for Blackstone Valley, Ipswich Pharmaceuticals, Nova Farms, Pure Oasis, Bountiful Farms, and Resonate. Thank you. I will note that Pure Oasis represents the first final license in Boston, if I'm correct, and the first economic empowerment license, final license, if I'm correct. And we've had many milestones during the course of the Commission's history. We have a lot more work to do, as I constantly say, and so I expect there will be future milestones as well. I know there will be, but this is an important milestone. I just want to take a second to pause and wish you. I'd like to wish Pure Oasis the best of luck. Commissioner Tidal?
If I may, I think it's worth noting that the commission has to prioritize economic empowerment applicants, but cities and towns do not. So I want to acknowledge the city of Boston for voluntarily having a long-term vision and implementing it and taking this step towards equity and fairness.
Any other comments before we move on? Thank you. Is that it for final licenses, Mr. Hoffman?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to propose is we have, I believe, 31, if my math, or 27, if my math is correct, provisional licenses, which is a large number. Mr. Poppin, like most of the rest of the commission, has been sick recently, so thank you for being here today. I'm going to suggest we go through maybe half of it and then take a break and come back to the second half of the roster, if that's okay. And again, for provisional licenses, we're going to do these one by one. That's okay, and unless anybody needs a break more quickly, then probably take a break in the back. Excuse me. Okay, can we, I guess, can we get started again, please? Thank you. I appreciate it, people taking things. So we'll do these one by one. Mr. Potvin, starting with Apotheca Incorporated, MRN 282730 Retail. Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant here is Apotheca Inc. The proposed location is 1386 Massachusetts Avenue, located in Arlington, Mass. The license being sought here is a retail license. The applicant did execute a host community agreement on July 19th. The community outreach meeting was held on June 13th of 2019. We did receive a municipal response from Arlington on January 1st, 2020, stating that the applicant was in compliance with local ordinances or bylaws. Therefore, commission staff do recommend approval of the provisional license with the conditions before you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Potvin. Can I ask for any comments or questions before I ask for a motion on Apotheca?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Flanagan.
I would like some clarification on their positive impact plan. It says that they are going to positively impact residents of Fitchburg and Lynn in other areas of disproportionate impact. I think if we're going to have measurable goals, I'd like to know what those other areas are, or if they're choosing to just focus on Fitchburg and Lynn to take that out.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Then can I please ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation on provisional license for Apotheca Incorporated, MRN 282730 retailer, subject to the additional condition requested by Commissioner Flanagan?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Tidal made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on provisional license for Apotheca Incorporated, MRN 282730, subject to the additional condition requested by Commissioner Flanagan. Thank you. The two Cultivate holdings are separate or together? Separate votes, but one overview. So next up, Cultivate Holdings LLC, MCN 282053, and Cultivate Holdings MPN 281742. Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, the applicant here is Cultivate Holdings LLC. The proposed location is 100 Campanelli Drive, located in Uxbridge. The two licenses being sought are a Tier 5 indoor cultivation license and a product manufacturing license. The applicant did execute a host community agreement with the municipality on May 15th of 2019. A community outreach meeting was held on April 29th of 2019. The commission did receive a response from the municipality on December 3rd of 2019, stating that the applicant was in compliance with local ordinances or bylaws. Therefore, commission staff do recommend approval and issuance of a provisional license with the conditions before you.
Thank you, Mr. Potvin. Are there any questions or comments before I ask for a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Flanagan.
I have two concerns with regards to Cultivate. I think, first and foremost, the letters that they have don't say whether or not the entities will take the money. It just says that they're there, and I want some clarification that they're going to actually just take the money that Cultivate wants to give them. But I think more importantly for me, the question is, they're located in Uxbridge, and that's where this application is for. But under the Cultivate Launch Program, one of their goals is to reach out to the Boston City councilors who have expressed an interest in supporting and assisting the applicants. My question is, why Boston City councilors? What is that going to add to the program, given the fact that this is not a Boston entity? And so I'd like clarification and specifically reasonings for choosing to talk to Boston politicians.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, separate votes. So can I ask please for a motion to approve staff recommendation on provisional license for Cultivate Holdings LLC, MCN 282053, Tier 5 indoor cultivation, subject to the conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan? Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on provisional license for Cultivate Holdings LLC, MCN 282053, subject to the conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan. Let me next ask for a motion, please, to approve staff recommendation on provisional license for Cultivate Holdings LLC, MPN 281742, product manufacturer, again, subject to the conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Tittle. All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner? Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on provisional license for Cultivate Holdings LLC, MPN 281742, subject to conditions requested by Commissioner Flanagan. Thank you. Next are DM Orange, same location?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we have two provisional license applications for DM Orange LLC. First is MCN 282161, Tier 2 indoor cultivation. Second is MPN 281684, product manufacturer. Mr. Ponson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, the applicant here is DM Orange LLC. The proposed location is 207 Daniel Shays Highway, located in Orange, Mass. The two licenses being sought are a Tier 2 indoor cultivation license and a product manufacturing license. The applicant here did execute a host community agreement on April 23rd of 2019. They conducted a community outreach meeting on May 3rd of 2019, and the commission did receive a municipal response for both applications on December 19th of 2019, stating that they were in compliance with local ordinances or bylaws. Therefore, commission staff do recommend approval and issuance of those two provisional licenses with the conditions before you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments before I ask for a motion? Commissioner McBride?
I'd like to ask for an additional condition that they tell us what the shape is of the gummies that they are planning on producing before final licensure, and if not at that point, then before they come to market. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other requests for conditions or comments? Again, we'll do a separate vote on them, and your condition, Commissioner McBride, would apply to the second license, correct? The cultivation license, the manufacturing license, yeah. Okay. So first, let me ask for a motion then to approve the staff recommendation on provisional license for DM Orange LLC, MCN 161, Tier 2 indoor cultivation. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on provisional license for DM Orange LLC, MCN 282161. Let me next ask, please, for a motion to approve the staff recommendation on provisional license for DM Orange LLC, MPN 281684, product manufacturer, subject to the condition requested by Commissioner McBride.
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on provisional license for DM Orange LLC, MPN 281684, subject to the additional condition requested by Commissioner McBride. Thank you. Ms. Potvin, Grass Appeal, co-located?
Yes, sir.
So again, two licenses is one conversation, two votes. First, Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123, Tier 3 indoor cultivation. Next, Grass Appeal LLC, MRN 282267, retailer. Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant here is Grass Appeal LLC. The proposed location is 79 River Road, located in Uxbridge. The two licenses being sought are a Tier 3 indoor cultivation license and a retail license. The applicant here did execute a host community agreement on December 20th of 2018. A community outreach meeting was held on December 17th of 2018. The commission did receive a municipal response on December 18th of 2019, stating that the applicant was in compliance with all local ordinances or bylaws. Therefore, commission staff do recommend approval and issuance of the provisional licenses, subject to the conditions before you.
Thank you, Mr. Potvin. Before I ask for a motion, are there questions or comments? Commissioner McBride?
I have a question. So on the executive summary, it's listed that the applicant is not an applicant or a licensee for any other license type. The individual who's named is Richard Renone, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing the last name correctly. However, Mr. Renone is also the individual listed on the baked beans license, which we renewed earlier today. Was there a disclosure of that interest? If there wasn't a disclosure, why? And I guess why, given that there is a connection there, that we have baked beans and then we have Grass Appeal, these two different entities, two different names, but the same individual. I'm not raising a concern about any cap issues or anything like that, but I just want to understand our process, the disclosure, and whether we need, I want to make sure that we're kind of talking consistently and that we're using the same conventions so that we all understand who is associated with what license and what application.
So to first start off with the disclosure piece, it's important to know that these applications do come in at various times and some do get approved prior to others. So not all applications are going to have all the disclosures as we evolve over time and as people start applying and getting licensed over time. Whether I'm not 100% sure if he did disclose it on Grass Appeal, but what I can tell you is that enforcement staff, specifically our licensing staff, when they do an initial review of the application, review it not only for the entity itself, for example, Grass Appeal, but for every other entity that's listed on the application and every individual to ensure that there is no cap or canopy violation. Just to put that at rest also, it is also reviewed again before the application is deemed complete because applicants do change information during the RFI process. Why it's not specifically, and yes, staff do know that he's associated with baked beans. He's also associated with another application that's currently in our queue that hasn't been reviewed. We are aware that currently on the executive summary, we're only listing whether the marijuana establishment and name only Grass Appeal itself would have additional applications in the queue.
For purposes of disclosure, because I think we need to be holding everybody to the same standard, right? So I would assert that applicants and licensees on renewal need to be disclosing to us. We are in a position where the licensing division does a huge amount of work on a daily basis. We should be requiring of applicants that they make your lives as easy as possible by putting that disclosure out there, at the beginning. But also in addition to that, because we require transparency and we demand transparency, and we need to know as a commission who we're looking at, and if we need to count to 3 or count to 4 when it comes to licenses and applications, I think that we need to try to make that as easy as possible for everybody, the public, licensing, the commission, everybody. So I would ask that we really be making sure that we're requiring those disclosures and that we are checking on those disclosures and making it as transparent as we can.
And thank you, absolutely. And I think it's important to note that our enforcement staff take all requirements of an application very seriously, which I think we all know. But also we take the idea of ensuring no cap limit violations, no canopy limit violations, as it is a statutory requirement for the cap limits. But I also want to amend my previous statement with whether he did disclose the baked beans interest. He did.
Thank you. Commissioner McBride, do you have a condition you'd like to suggest for these licenses?
I don't. This was. I
appreciate the comments. I just want to make
this
sure.
was an exercise to make sure that we all understood when we're looking at these that we're looking at the same information and that we're all aware of the same information. And it's obviously particularly important as additional applications come in from existing licensees that we're making sure that we're all aware of what the state of play is.
Yeah, I can support that. I just want to make sure that there wasn't a condition that you were asking for on this particular license or these 2 licenses. Are there any other comments or questions on these 2 licenses before I ask for motion, Commissioner Title?
I'd just like to add a condition to revise the diversity plan goals, specifically the goal to have 4% women.
4%. Any other comments or questions?
So Chair.
Yes, Commissioner, or excuse me, sorry, I just promoted you. Commissioner Collins, how are you? Welcome to the team.
I'm confused.
Mr. Executive Director, I'm sorry.
Just to follow up on Commissioner McBride's point, I think it was a point well made and well taken as far as the requirement to disclose, I think also falls on the commission as well. So knowing that the individual and the licensee disclosed as required in the application, I think we'll undertake an effort to review the executive summary process to ensure that it is completely representative. But I also, in a way, it has been an evolution already where you'll notice in these materials for this meeting, there are a number of modifications that have been made. So I guess it's a living, breathing process as well as far as if an applicant is identified as an MTC priority applicant, we've disclosed when that initial review occurred as far as whether they received that priority status. Similarly, if an applicant has been identified as being expedited, the basis for that expediting policy. The other thing that we've done is an attempt to anticipate the concerns raised by commissioners in the past and anticipate those conditions that may be applied. So the one I'm actually kicking myself on was a previous licensee where I didn't anticipate the shape of gummies. But we're trying to, I think, take that feedback and incorporate it into our process. Similarly, we will take that feedback in. To Mr. Potvin's answer, it is something the staff does undertake for a review, but that disclosure is incumbent upon us to make as well. So we will commit to do that.
Great, no, I appreciate that, and I certainly will recognize the fact that you guys have adapted as you've heard continued questions from the commission, so I appreciate that. And unfortunately, I wish I could tell you you're done, but I'm sure there are going to be continuing questions and therefore continued requirements for adaptation on your part. So in advance, I'll thank you for that. Yeah, Commissioner Title.
On that note, one thing I noticed during the applicant forum that I didn't quite appreciate previously is how unfair it feels to applicants when they see someone else moving forward with a condition, when they themselves are being asked to make revisions. And I hadn't really noticed that before. So I really appreciate, particularly in the diversity and positive impact plans, that I'm having to make fewer conditions because that's being taken care of before it gets in front of the commission. But I'd like to minimize conditions as much as possible for that reason.
Yeah, I completely support that. Thank you for that comment. Anything else, again, before I ask for a motion then? Okay, then I'd like please to ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation on provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123, Tier 3 indoor cultivation, subject to the condition requested by Commissioner Title.
So moved. Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approve the staff recommendation on provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123, subject to the condition requested by Commissioner Title. Let me next ask please for a motion to approve the staff recommendation for provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MRN 282267, retailer, again subject to the condition requested by Commissioner Title. Thank you. Can I have a second, please? Please. Thank you. Let the record show that the motion was made by Commissioner Doyle, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Let the record show the Commission unanimously approve the staff recommendation on provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MRN 282267, subject to the condition requested by Commissioner Title. Thank you. Next up is Green Star Herbals Incorporated, MRN 282207, retailer. Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant here is Green Star Herbals Incorporated. The proposed location is 22-24 Main Street, located in Maynard. The license being sought here is a retail license. The applicant did execute a host community agreement on December 18th of 2018. A community outreach meeting was held on November 29th of 2018. The commission did receive a response from the municipality on December 3rd of 2019, stating that the applicant was in compliance with all local ordinances and bylaws. Therefore, commission staff do recommend provisional licensure with the conditions before you.
Thank you, Mr. Potvin. Are there any questions before I ask for a motion? Commissioner Title?
I apologize. In my notes, I had written Green Star Appeals and gotten two applicants mixed up. It's Green Star Herbals that had the 4% women that I'd like to add a condition on. I apologize. If we could go back to Grass Appeal.
Grass Appeal? Okay. Yeah, no problem. Let's do Green Star Herbals and then I'll go back to Grass Appeal. So can I then have a motion to approve staff recommendation on provisional license for Green Star Herbals Incorporated, MRN 282207, subject to the condition requested by Commissioner Title on Grass Appeal?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on provisional license for Green Star Herbals, MRN 282207, retailer subject to the condition requested by Commissioner Title.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm sorry. We took the vote, if I'm correct. So I think I was just summarizing for the record that the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on Green Star Herbals subject to condition requested by Commissioner Title. I would like to ask for a motion, please, to reopen, reconsider the provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123, and there are no additional conditions requested on this license. Is that correct? And can I have such a motion, please, for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Title made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle, to approve the staff recommendation for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Then let the record show that the Commission approved the provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123, with no additional conditions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, do I need to undo
procedure, I think it should be.
two votes?
Right, a vote to reconsider
Yeah,
that.
no, I was thinking, as I was going through this, I was thinking that probably made sense. So again, let's do this from scratch. First, I would like a motion, please, to, what's the correct word? Move to reconsider the provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123, subject to the conditions requested by Commissioner Title. Can I have such a move to reconsider?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the motion to reconsider the provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123. Now I would like to ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation to issue provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123, with no additional conditions. Can I have such a motion, please?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I couldn't hear you. No, what conditions?
No additional conditions. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
It was a raise.
Okay, Commissioner, let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MCN 282123, with no additional conditions. Next motion that I would like, please, is a motion to reconsider Grass Appeal LLC, MRN 282267. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the motion to reconsider the provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MRN 282267. I would now like to ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation on provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MRN 282267, subject to no additional conditions. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Title made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on a provisional license for Grass Appeal LLC, MRN 282267, subject to no additional conditions. Thank you. Okay, well, that convinced me that I don't know about the rest of the world, but I need a break. So it's 25 of 12. We'll reconvene in 15 minutes at 10 minutes to 12. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's okay.
Oh, yeah. I swear to God.